Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching To The Point with me, Sana Khan, and this week my guest on the show is former Attorney General of India, Shri Soli Sorabjee. Who better than him to discuss an issue that has gripped the nation in the past few days, the issue of the sexual harassment of women. Thanks so much, sir, for joining me on this show. Now, if we talk about sexual harassment of women, if I recollect from the time of Mahabharata, the case of Draupadi, so this thing has been prevailing for such a long time, and we have a law that was passed by the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha only in this year, 2013. Why does it take for us so long to come up with a law?
Well, it happens. It takes time for the legislature to respond to the needs of the society, and the law was in the wake of that horrible gang rape of the brave heart. Now the thing is, one thing is certain. The sexual harassment of women does take place at workplace. Maybe it's exaggerated by some of them. And another thing is also required, that they must have an adequate remedy. And a remedy which doesn't expose them to embarrassment. Yeah. Otherwise you go to police station and all that. Some mechanism at the workplace. That's the Vishaka guidelines. Yeah. That's what the Act has done. Now the Act has expanded the definition of rape. It's not the traditional one of penetration in the body. Expanded it. Yeah. Number of things. Now the question is... But
do you think that is more effective now? The changes that have been made?
Well, effective can only mean on proper implementation. But it's good in the sense that it has not confined it to the narrow traditional meaning, conventional meaning rather of rape. The thing we have to take care of is that while these laws are beneficial and certainly needed, as I said, because sexual harassment of women at the workplace is rampant, there must be safeguards about its use. If a complaint is made, the complaint must be examined with care. Not, I mean, to say thoroughly crossing the woman, but prima facie, the complaint must reveal some offence. It can't be that merely on making up a complaint, you
action
adjudge
is
the
taken
person,
and the person is accused.
A person guilty. That's not fair. Right. You can't ask any person against whom some charges are made of sexual harassment, did you resign? Yeah. Suppose there's a vice chancellor of university, any university, and someone makes an allegation that he tried to make advances which comes in the median of rape. But the question is not on mere allegations. I'm not saying there should be proof beyond doubt. I'm not saying that it only conviction by criminal court and then only he should resign.
But it should be thoroughly examined.
Something more. Something more. If anybody, if any committee has even made an observation, adverse observation, then it's a different matter. But merely making of allegations that can't result or should not result in the resignation of the person, unless if he's embarrassed, that's a different matter. Because then you are really equating allegations with proof. So that, I think we must keep that in mind.
Okay, that's a very crucial point. Now, some of the laws that I was reading about and some of the very basic laws which are mentioned in the Indian Penal Code, Section 376 of rape, 354 of molestation, 509 of sexual harassment. Now, you did say that some changes have been made and some fine-tuning has been done. But according to you, I'm asking you as an experienced person, a person who's written, talked about it so much, is this enough, or would you suggest that some more specific things be added?
Sana, we have to go step by step. This is the beginning. Let's see that. This is also quite a, I say, a wide departure from the ordinary conception, connotation of rape. So let's see how it works. Maybe other things are not put in there, because I suppose everything is trial and error. Let us see what experience is derived by the implementation of these laws. Trouble really comes for non-implementation. That's the real problem.
Implementation is the key.
Non-implementation of the laws really results in these violations going unnoticed and unpunished.
I also wanted to ask you about, complaints which are made and they turn out to be hoax. They turn out to be merely made because they have an underlying motive, and that happens so much so in such as the Dowry Prohibition Act.
No, it has happened. The courts have taken notice of it. They are misused. People are subjected to terrible...
Yeah, but how can that be checked? Do you think the punishment is
I think there should
grave enough? And do you think the fundamental right of, let's say, a person, a man in let's take up a case, a man is being infringed upon, how can that be checked?
No, fundamental rights. Let's come to the other thing about a hoax complaint or sometimes a malicious complaint. Well, then if the complainant is found to have made complaint without any basis or really with a malicious motive, then I think the complainant should also face some penalty. Maybe exaggerated, different matter. Maybe the complaint is more colorful than what the facts really justify. But if it's a false complaint, malicious complaint, certainly there should be penalty for making such complaints. But normally, I think women in our country wouldn't make such false complaints. Normally. But you can never lay down a principle, and you must be alive to this possibility of abuse and have protection, both in the shape of a deterrent measure against the person who is found to have made a false complaint, and also by not saying that the person against whom a complaint has been made, without it being adjudicated upon, the man should resign or man should face some consequences.
And quite interestingly, what about laws, protecting men at workplaces, let's say? Because we live in a country where, some violent act takes place, and there is, as we've seen with, maybe let's talk about the Anna Hazare movement, or after this December gang rape case, something happens and then there's public outrage and then some sort of action is implemented. But why can't we have something beforehand? Why do we live in a country where something bad needs to happen for action to be initiated?
Yes, we are a lethargic people. People are used to their way of thinking. Unless something shocks them out of it, then of course it takes place. It shouldn't really. A responsive and enlightened nation should in fact not wait for such incidents to happen, but anticipate them. But the incidents accelerates it. It's a catalysis. Right. That's the reason. Many times in law it happens. So many things should have happened years back, happen only when certain cases come to light, and they're horrendous cases. Right. That engages public attention, legal attention, attention of academics, juries, judges, lawyers, and then reform takes place. But in any country, reform is always slow. There's a status quo mentality, I'm afraid.
Sir, before we head in for a break, I wanted to ask you, is there any provision in the law per se of rape or sexual harassment where a time limit is set, that after within such a time period, a complaint can be filed? Or let's say a rape that took place 10 years ago and I'm filing a complaint today.
Frankly, I have not studied that aspect. But even if there's a time limit, there always can be a provision for condonation of delay. The person can explain why a complaint, prima facie, if a complaint is made late, it has, I myself would have misgivings about the complaint, but there may be good reasons. And there should be a provision for condonation. There should, in which case, suppose the person something happened in the family, someone died in the family, there was some other circumstances, that person was struck down with serious illness. Yes, anything can happen, but normally there should be some time limit, otherwise it can be endless harassment.
Right. So on that note, we're taking a very short break. I'll be back. We'll continue talking to Shri Soli Sorabjee. Stay tuned.
How really we must sensitize law enforcement authorities and even the judiciary.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching To The Point. With me is Shri Soli Sorabjee. Sir, let's talk about India as a country. According to a survey done by Thomson Reuters in 2011, it's ranked as the 4th most dangerous place for women to work in. Is that thought scary for all these women who are looking out, passing out from colleges, applying for jobs?
Do the women feel that? That is a real test. Yes, they feel uncomfortable. These surveys, I'm not too sure on what basis they are carried out. I don't place much faith in it. The most dangerous country, of course it's unsafe. But I mean, to paint it in that fashion, to brand it as an unsafe place at all, it's a different thing. Question is, women must have sense of security. Mainly, that can happen when there is protection, there's something patrolling on the streets. And the main thing is, apart from laws, please make it must be. If you ask me, any offense of rape should be concluded in 6 months. Because unless there's speedy trial and followed by conviction, of course, speedy trial, I must mean a fair trial. Otherwise, a culture of impunity develops. The rapist thinks, oh, it will be 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, by the time witnesses won't be there. No, the real thing is speedy trial followed by stringent punishment. These two things are important.
But isn't it quite startling when you see that even countries like Congo, Afghanistan, Pakistan have more security for women? Again, I'm quoting another survey, but let's just believe that for a moment and believe these surveys are true. It's quite, gives India quite a bad standing.
I don't think Pakistan, other countries to mention, have more security for women.
What do you have to say about the bad press that India gets, especially after that December rape case?
But naturally, anything that happens takes international attention. You will get a press. But why doesn't the press also give attention to the fact how the trial has gone on? How the people after fair trial have been convicted? In fact, the reference is pending in the High Court about the death sentence. Press never likes to report things which are pleasant or things which are not sensational.
And talking about women being employed in organizations, do you think that these laws that are only shaping up now have an impact on the employer's mind also somewhere, in the psyche somewhere? They'll think twice before perhaps hiring a woman employee? No?
Well, I think they should think twice before what they do. But I don't think so. I think that's an anti-feminist approach. If an organization is good, the people there don't misbehave. I don't think there's any reason. Of course, they'll be careful. They'll be careful about some persons sometimes make allegations also for publicity. But by and large, I don't think that should deter any organization which has got this mechanism in place for making complaints, to make Vishaka guidelines, what is required. I think they shouldn't really be deterred by this.
Okay. And in our country, not just in our country, in fact, I was reading up, even in more progressive countries like America, there is a problem. The victims, they're scared to speak up.
Yeah.
Even if they're empowered, even if they have good financial standing, if they're confident about themselves, they still don't speak up. Hence, the repeated violation continues and it goes on and on.
When they don't speak up, as I told you, for obvious reasons. First, they want to not put themselves in the public eye. I mean, they're a victim of rape, but in any case, there's some sort of a stigma, wrong stigma, in the mind of the person. So therefore, their recourse to remedy should be such which does not expose them to this kind of cross-examination and other sort of methods by which they become more the accused than the victim. And that's how really we must sensitize law enforcement authorities and even the judiciary.
Right. Do you think social media is now going out of line also, where we saw with the Nirbhaya case, some pictures were posted?
Well, media, of course, there's no question about it. It does good work. But media can act as a catalyst. For example, can say, why is this matter not being investigated into? Why are these things not looked into? But media can't arrogate to itself the role of a judge. They can't say, oh, pronounce a verdict on someone, he's guilty or not guilty, he should be believed, not believed. That's media trial. That's the work of the court. Don't usurp the jurisdiction of the court. Of course, it's important when some case, for example, Jessica Lal was dormant till the media, as a catalyst, brought it to attention and the trial started. But there must be a good dividing line between the role of media as a catalyst, or rather bringing to the attention of the people and the authorities how such cases are sort of just languishing, not taking place, and then taking the role of a judge and not commenting on everything. Oh, he can't be believed. Oh, no, he's not saying the truth. That's not your work.
True. Okay, now you also wrote a text back in the year 1988 on protection of human rights in emergencies.
88?
Yeah.
Remind me.
Protection of human rights in emergencies. Now, that is also a huge problem, not just in India, but in other countries as well, about, whenever some, let's say, natural calamity has taken place. So let's pick up the, incident of Muzaffarnagar, where women have been raped, even in the camps over there. So, relief camps too prove to be rather disastrous. So again, we come back to the point of how, change needs to be brought about.
Yes, a question of relief camps, if properly manned, and if the state was really vigorous to provide relief, shouldn't have happened. But these are instances which only should make us feel that you require real backup, not mere laws. You see, take those people who Muzaffarnagar riot victims. they must feel confident. Some of them really don't want to even go there. That should be removed. That's where the state agencies and also some good enlightened NGOs can do the good work. It's a fear, it's a mental fear which must go. Naturally, if you feel, no, I can't go there because I'll still be harassed, I'll still be sort of ill-treated, then no amount of laws can help it. It must be, the public consciousness must be such, and the confidence will be instilled in the people. Yes, we can go there safely.
So in
that's
a way,
said and done.
If the fear disappears, a lot can be
yes,
taken
but in order
forward.
the fear should disappear, some steps have to be taken.
Absolutely. On that note, we take another short break, sir. We'll be back. Keep watching To The Point.
Because the whole idea is to give them a remedy which doesn't involve them to further embarrassment.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching To The Point. Sir, let's talk about women in India. How, once they're not only harassed, sexually exploited, but also the victimization and the trauma that they face after that is something that needs to be dealt with and something that is missing in our country. How can that state be totally avoided?
But I don't know, totally avoid it, but that can be minimized. But then giving them proper service, counseling, other medical, psychiatric facilities, services, because that's a very important thing. That can go on for a number of years and that affects a woman's further progress or further development, because that stays with her. A rape is such a horrible crime. It's not something like giving a box in the face, but the thing is the integrity of the person has been really impaired. And that is something for which not only the law, but the other agencies should cooperate to restore the woman's confidence, first to make her not feel so bad about it, terrible about it. That's sort of complex, saying that, oh, people think she was a rape victim and so, especially in our country, anyone rape victim, there are different people in Denmark and others, they would look at it, well, it's like a motor accident happened. That's very important. That must go when the woman will have confidence in herself and make her feel that's what happened, keep it behind you, go ahead.
Move on.
Of course.
So a lot of different agencies are required for that.
Naturally,
no one solution
not mere
for
laws,
rehabilitation. Yeah.
Any of the laws, they should be really implemented with sensitivity, with understanding.
We were talking about, how a person is pronounced guilty without, adequate amount, but we didn't talk about proof over here. But there is a pressure of, quitting the job, finding that proof, because it's going to impact a woman's career as well. So there are a lot of fears that exist in a woman today before she goes out and actually reports, and that maybe is one of the reasons why half of the cases go unreported, and even if they're reported, they come out after many months or many years.
And that's true, dear. You're quite right. As I told you, no young lady would like to go to a police station to lodge an FIR. It's terrible. First of all, the treatment they get at the police station and even their prosecution. So let's have some other mechanism.
What about these committees that the Supreme Court has said for officers to make?
That's good.
That's a good step, you think?
They should be really functional, operational and functional. Because the whole idea is to give them a remedy which doesn't involve them to further embarrassment. I won't say humiliation, further embarrassment. And they're feeling awkward. Then they won't have recourse to the remedy. It's because they will keep quiet, suffer in silence. No, we don't want them to suffer in silence. They should not suffer. The tormentor must be brought to book, but also brought to book on basis of some evidence, not on mere allegations.
What is your thought on some countries which have extreme punishment for such cases,
What, castration?
Stoned until death or beheading or something like that. Yeah. But that is one thing which is missing in our country, the instilling of that fear. Obviously, because a person, if he does not fear a particular crime, that crime will continue to happen.
As I told you, these are barbaric methods. We can't do that. Some countries also cut off, chop off hands of the thieves. Really what will instill fear is quick trial, swift trial, followed by stringent punishment. Then it will mean if the trial goes on and if the conviction comes after as I told you, 6 years, 8 years, there's no fear at all. But here he feels, oh, it will be quick and it will be stringent at the end. Of course, always underline, quick does not mean an unfair trial. So justice delayed is justice denied, but please remember that justice hurried is also justice buried.
So when we talk about these sort of trials, which we hope do come about in the days to come, and the trials are fair and speedy, as you said, but even the law, can some points be added in the law to make people fear them more? Because one tends to find one loophole or the other in any amount of law, and the laws can be twisted, and that's what...
So long as you have the profession of lawyers and the legal fraternity, they also find loopholes, but make laws which are not exposed to loopholes, which are sort of badly drafted. But main thing is implement. It will take time, yeah. It will take time. After some time, even after this was happened in Assam.
So you're saying the existing laws are good enough, but they still take time to...
Take time for the implementation. And this general perception that rape will not be sort of inquired into, prosecuted, punished for a long time, that gives a culture of impunity. That's where there is no fear. Because a man thinks that we'll see after 10 years.
What according to you is a strict punishment? Let's say a rape has taken place with a woman at a workplace, and you know, there is sufficient proof to say that yes, this particular man is guilty. What is strict punishment? Let's just forget about what's written in the law for a moment, and I want to take in your perspective.
Strict punishment is what? No, I'm not in favor of death penalty as a matter of principle, but should be life imprisonment. Rigorous life imprisonment. I'm not in favor of castration. That's primitive. Rigorous life imprisonment. And maybe in other cases, if it's also coupled with murder, premeditated murder, I think death penalty can be provided for. Then the judge will decide whether that particular case was the rarest of rare category and death penalty should be imposed. So there should be a provision for death penalty in such limited kind of cases.
Also the problem we do understand is deep-rooted. So do you feel, you know, from the time when a child starts to go to school as well, this should be instilled in his DNA, you know, respecting women and how conduct should be, and later on when a person joins work, how conduct should be, how he should behave with his female colleague, and, you know, everything...
Then of course, that's the ideal solution. That must be. But we know what happens. In school what happens, in college what happens. We certainly visited a girl who was good looking. But that's different, you know. That's the main attitude. You do this, but not that. Stalling a person, tormenting a person, that's different. It's not the law. He should be made to feel by education at home and education in school that this is not done. He must feel, no, this is not done. There's something wrong. Not that chalta hai. And you look at it and you feel very proud when someone whistles at an attractive girl and that sort of thing. There's mental, we've been seeing so many pictures and so many stories which really, that macho male is sort of glorified, and there's nothing wrong. It's sort of teasing women or catcalls and all that. But if at home, that when I say at home, I hope the parents, the father also shares that approach. If he is made to feel, no, this is something not done, it's something disgusting. I wouldn't like that to happen to my sister or mother. And then therefore it would be some improvement in this very solid scene we have, where rape cases are reported so frequently all over the country.
Right. Well said, sir. Some very important points that you made for us today on the show. Let me end this show by quoting a few words of Mahatma Gandhi. He said that of all the evils of which man has made himself responsible, none is so degrading, so shocking, or so brutal as his abuse of the better half of humanity, the female sex. Words that have been spoken about, you know, many, many years back by many other prominent men, leaders of our society. But it's really a shame that we have to come and witness this day and this scene with us. Once again, I'd like to thank you very much, sir, for joining me on the show. With this, we wrap up this edition of To The Point, and I thank Sri Soli Sorabjee for giving me his time. Thank you.